PTS is indeed up. It went up last night and I was quick to hop on and try everything out. We're going to be talking about a few things from the update for the next few days now that we've gotten our hands on the PTS. But the first two things I want to talk about are the nerfs to Koga and Zhin. These nerfs have been the main talking point of the update's balance. From what I've seen, you guys really don't like them at all. So let's go ahead and talk about them. First, let's start off with Koga. So in case you didn't know, Koga's speed bonus from agility was nerfed from 50 to 30%. According to Evil Mojo, this was done because Koga can have constant uptime with that speed bonus, and other characters like Maeve can only have it for a set duration. To balance this out, they decided to nerf the amount of speed he gets to compensate for its uptime. I get the reasoning. It's solid reasoning. However, the end product doesn't feel so solid. Now real quick, since I know a few of you will bring it up, Maeve's prowl speed is also nerfed on PTS. They are looking into it, so it's not intended. Now before I go back to Koga, let me do a bit of a disclaimer here. The footage in this video is not going to back up what I say. When something isn't all that great, PTS footage never really shows that. The PTS has no matchmaking to compensate for its lower player base, so anyone can get put up against anyone. These games aren't fair, so before you say, well, you say these characters got hit really hard, but you're still doing really well with them, know that I'm not being put in a position where, for a lack of better words, I'm being pushed. Now back to the nerf. So it is very noticeable. It's like having Nimble 3 basically. You notice the increase in movement speed, but it doesn't feel too different from walking. Agility doesn't really feel like much of an ability anymore. There were many times where I wanted to close distance and I used agility, but it barely helped at all. I often felt like I was better off dashing to close distance, escape, or juke an enemy. Basically, agility didn't feel worth using the energy over. This in turn made me take all of my agility cards out of the deck. Because if the ability isn't worth it, how could the card that buff it be? Yes, there is a card that increases the movement speed of agility by 20%, so yeah, you can get back up to 50%. But that's 5 points, and Koga doesn't really have room to use that many points on that card. When Koga first came out, I didn't even use agility. I forgot about the ability for the most part. It wasn't until the Master of Arms build was discovered that I started using it. With this nerf, I basically went back to the original way I used to play Koga, which was playing Adrenaline Junkie and using dashes as my main form of mobility. Now I do think Koga will still be fine in low to mid tiers. It's mainly the higher ones that he's gonna fall off the most. For the most part, Koga isn't even seen in higher tier games, unless he has pockets like Torvald and Genos. This was before the first set of nerfs he got to his Dragon Fangs and Claws too. Those nerfs made it so he's basically never seen in higher tier games, and when he is, it's still because of pocketing. With this nerf on top of those, he's gone even further down. In the last video, a lot of you talked about how you'd prefer the range on his claws to be reduced instead of this, and I agree. The high range allows him to take a lot of fights, and the 50% movement speed on top of it allows him to quickly close any small gaps there may be. On the flip side, his SMGs have a lot of fall off and inaccuracy due to their speed. These weaknesses made any SMG-based playstyle rely on agility to help close that gap. So nerfing the claw range would have better balanced the claw agility combo, while not affecting the fairly balanced SMG agility combo. However, they did want there to be more of a drawback for the constant uptime, so that wouldn't really have fulfilled their goal, but I do think it would have created less problems than this nerf has. Another big thing with this nerf is there was no compensation elsewhere for it. Koga does have a lot of problems. He's lacked a real SMG playstyle since Master of Arms was removed. You could argue that Junkie is one, but it doesn't really make the SMGs feel any stronger. You just use your abilities more. Another thing is his ult. It's one of the worst. Very easy to get out of, you can be healed through it, and Koga is a sitting duck for a second or two when it ends. You can even hurt him before he's even visible. Blood Reaper is also one of the worst talents in the game. I would love for a more SMG-based talent there or something. So if they offered compensation buffs, the agility nerf would still feel bad, but we'd at least feel less constricted into one playstyle, because the buffs would give us more ways to play Koga. I'm really hoping something changes about the way they balanced Koga before this update goes live. There are complaints about balance every update, but the amount of complaints I've seen about Koga is above the norm. The same goes for Zhin, who we'll talk about now. So Zhin had several things done to him. He got hit pretty hard with nerfs, but unlike Koga, he did receive some compensation. So they wanted Zhin's Billow to have a set, predictable duration like all the other abilities like it in the flank class. So his hideout card was reworked since it was the one that let you mess with Billow's duration. I get this, I really do. Reworking this fulfills their goal. Everyone can now accurately time and predict when he's going to come out of Billow without memorizing their hideout number. However, they went a step further after completing their goal and lowered the total duration of Billow from 2.5 seconds to 1.5 seconds. Now, to compensate for this, the movement speed bonus of Billow was increased from 20 to 30%, and the weapon lockout time after Billow ends was reduced, so you can attack after Billow faster. Smolder's healing per second was increased from 20 to 33%, so before you healed for 50% of your max health during Billow's base duration, and that number could be increased with Hideout. Now you heal for around 48%, but you do it faster since Billow's duration is shorter. Some call this a buff, I don't really think so. It's not a hard nerf or anything, but I wouldn't call it a buff to Smolder. Now 1.5 seconds is really quick. I had 50% extra movement speed on Billow, stacked on top of the 30%, and I barely got anywhere with Billow. So you can't hard dive now and get out, which I think is fine, but I think it was really overdone. Hideout rework was honestly enough, and if they really wanted to lower the duration on top of that, going down to 2 seconds instead of 1.5 would have been a lot better, even though I don't really think that 2.5 was that big of a deal. It doesn't help that this ability is on a 15-second cooldown. You get to move a few feet and then wait 15 seconds for a cooldown. Yes, he has a card where kills reset Billow's cooldown, but I don't think that justifies such a big cooldown. A 10-second cooldown minimum would be more fair for an ability with this low of a duration. I do still think having a longer duration would be better though. Zhin was really one of the only flanks that was viable at a higher level. With this nerf, I think all we're going to have left in the flank class at a higher level is Eevee. Any other flank would rarely be seen, and that's really rough when it comes to an entire class. Again, mid to low tier, practically all the flanks are fine and can be more constantly played, but it kinda sucks to not be able to play most of a class at a higher level. I think nerfs like these are partly responsible for that, but I won't shy away from the fact that two meta damages right now completely smack flanks around: Leon and Cassie. I do believe that if they were nerfed and not way better than all of the other damage characters, that the higher levels of play would see more flank play, because other damage characters aren't overly difficult to flank. They have way fairer and way more opportunities to jump them. With Leon and Cassie, they kinda just obliterate you with no real effort. All the damages are basically at the same level, besides Leon and Cassie who overperform and Willow and Dredge who underperform. If these outliers were brought closer to the middle, I think that would work wonders for the flank class. Of course, some buffs to flanks would still be warranted, but they wouldn't have to be super oppressive in low to mid tiers just to be good at high ones. Anyway, that's my 2 cents on the Koga and Zhin nerfs, as well as a bit on flank viability and problems in general. Let me know what you guys think about what was covered in this video. Give me all the feedback you can, cause the more feedback I have, the more of an argument I have to get Evil Mojo to improve things to the community's liking. Again, it's usually never gonna be exactly what we want, but solid compromises can be made. As you guys know, it's been done in the past with stuff like Fernando, and it's going to be done in the future with stuff like Androxus and Lex when it comes to their fire rate talents that you guys have been asking for so much. So yes, compromises can indeed be made, so hopefully we can get another one of those going into this next update, if not soon after the next update. We'll see how it goes. Fingers crossed. And yeah, that's pretty much it guys. I want to thank you all for watching. I very much appreciate it, and I'm going to see you guys later. Bye.